Hello everyone, my name is Amar Yunus. I am CEO of IMO Innovation Consultants. IMO Innovation Consultants is a boutique digital transformation consultancy. At IMO Innovation Consultants, we provide innovative consulting, trainings, digital services, networking opportunities, as well as a full suite of skills that is essential for the potential growth of individuals, enterprises, state bodies, and educational institutions. As you know that we have started this segment of IMO Talks. The purpose of these talks is to introduce you with different experts, their areas of expertise, and different services which they offer. Another purpose of these talks is to engage students, academicians, experts, state officials, and general public to inspire them, to motivate them, and to seek their feedback. We have been discussing different topics from social sciences, applied sciences, humanities, ranging from physics, chemistry, biology, philosophy, history, economics, soft skills, technology, and so on. The topic of today's discussion is post-COVID global economic order, challenges and opportunities. And we have a very special guest with us, Professor Antonio Ragusa. He is also special because he is my teacher as well. So Professor Antonio Ragusa is an Italian entrepreneur, professor, author, founder, and dean of Rome Business School. He is a trained lawyer and holds an MBA from London's Imperial College Business School with a specialization from London School of Economics. He has been teaching managerial disciplines at many universities and research centers across the world. Professor Antonio Ragusa has extensive experience as a manager in large companies, and his achievements in educational and entrepreneurial activities has been recognized across the globe. We are very honored to have you, Professor, with us. How are you feeling today?
Thank you very much, Mas. I'm very pleased to be with you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure is all ours. It is a proud moment for us that you have spared free time for our audience, for students from Central Asia and South Asia. So if you are ready, we can start the lecture.
With pleasure, with great pleasure. So like you were anticipating, the idea is to share some thoughts, some ideas about the situation that we are having in the world related to the economy, related to the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic is having on the world and the economic activities. And I will try to offer you a perspective which is not only related to the challenges that the pandemic is creating, but also to the opportunities, although it seems strange, but each challenge has inside an opportunity. And usually the terms crisis in Chinese, like you probably know, has these two semantic options. One is related to risk, to challenge, and the other one is opportunity. And we'll see, or at least I will try to explain and to demonstrate that also a terrible crisis like the one that we are living on a global scale can produce business opportunities that are real, that many organizations, companies, and individuals are already seizing. And I hope it can be of inspiration for those of you who are already working as managers, as professionals, who are already entrepreneur or are thinking to become an entrepreneur, because when something like this happens, there can be a lot, once again, of opportunities to verify. So first of all, let me share with you what is the general situation as today regarding the pandemic and the effects that the COVID-19 is having on the world. First of all, the first information that is probably the saddest is that as for today, on a global scale, we are having over 600,000 deaths and over 15 million confirmed cases of people that have been victims of the contagion. So it's an incredible pandemic. Probably is one of the greatest ever seen on the face of planet Earth. The most relevant effect of the pandemic that has both social and economic consequences is the fact that this emergency has led to lockdown. It has been called a great lockdown that has involved almost 4 billion people worldwide. So more than half of the world population has been bound to remain at home, to suspend his or her activities, and to be confined at home, in some cases for months, several months. So obviously, as we're going to see, this is having an incredible impact on our lives and on the economy. So consequently, the impact is determining a recession worldwide. This recession is being estimated by many research centers, by many institutions, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank. And so generally speaking, what they're saying is that the GDP, the gross domestic product, worldwide is going to decrease. Somebody says by 4% this year, somebody says more. In some cases, the statistics, the forecasts are more precise on a national basis. So to give you an idea, in Italy, they estimate a contraction of the gross domestic product by 12% in 2020. But at the same time, all these organizations, all these research centers say that in 2021, there should be a relevant recovery of the economy, like a bounce of the economy after a depression. There should be a quite good surge and recovery. We'll see. One of the consequences of the recession is also related to the financial markets. I will show you also later what happened there. Generally speaking, for sure, the first impact of the COVID-19 pandemic was the fall of the main stock indexes, in some cases, fall of 35 or 40%. But I will show you that in these latest weeks and months, the things are going much better, maybe in an unexpected way, but this is what. Another aspect that we should consider about the pandemic and the economic consequences of it is the unemployment. International Labour Organization has estimated that in the second quarter of 2020, the loss of full-time jobs amounts to around 200 million on a global scale. So 200 million people have lost their job due to this pandemic, and obviously we're talking about individuals, but also families, so great impact on the society as a whole. Another thing that is very relevant for all of us, I'm the dean and founder of a business school, but generally speaking, we all have some students in our families, some studying activities. So another consequence is the fact that the pandemic has caused the near total closure of schools, universities, and colleges on a, once again, international scale, because the contagion is incredibly affected by the presence of students in school. So one of the first measures that states had to take was the closure of schools, universities, and colleges. So we're talking about the 90% of the world student population. Never in history something similar had happened. Another aspect that I want to mention is that the pandemic has also generated some consequences in terms of xenophobia and racism, because China in general, Asian people have been accused of spreading the contagion, or at least of hiding the phenomenon. So unfortunately, this has also led to some phenomena of xenophobia and racism. So generally speaking, as you can see, it's a very, very negative general framework that creates many problems, many challenges, but as I'm going to show you, also opportunities. So first of all, what are the responses that states, governments, and international organizations have taken towards the pandemic? There are two areas of intervention. One is related to the health response and the other to the economic response. What does it mean? So from the health perspective, as we all know, first of all, states have tried to strengthen the health service. We also have to consider that in many countries, unfortunately, states had recently decided to cut the investment in healthcare. And so in many countries, states were not prepared to face and to manage such a threat, such a pandemic. In most countries, states have decided to adopt on a compulsory basis personal protective equipment like face mask or gloves or things like that. In most countries, there has been the suspension of aggregating activities, so social distancing and lockdown, as we mentioned. And in many countries, states and governments are investing a lot in pharmaceutical development, in systems and drugs that can help us to reduce the negative effects of the pandemic and hopefully arrive as soon as possible to finalize the vaccine that should actually stop the drug. From an economic perspective, there are three main actions that government, states, and international organizations have taken. The first one is called quantitative easing. What does it mean? Basically, it means that governments have started, and also central banks have started to buy bonds and shares of companies, organizations, in order to keep their prices and their level and their value high enough and avoid the total collapse of the corporate environment. With the same goal, states and central banks have decided to push the economy by injecting liquidity in the system, so providing companies, organizations, and the corporate environment with cash, with support in terms of money that can help companies and organizations to go ahead with their activities. A third area of intervention has been the tax maneuvers. So in some cases, states have decided to either eliminate or at least to stop and postpone the payment of some taxes in order to, once again, facilitate and help the life of businesses and of companies. For example, in many European countries, the corporate tax has been postponed for some months, and also some other taxes like the VAT tax have been postponed, they once again to help companies and organizations. Let me start telling you how we can arrive to opportunities from these challenges and from this crisis. First of all, we have to consider that obviously, like we've seen, the pandemic has created a health emergency. The health emergency has led to the lockdown, and the lockdown is the final step that leads to both crisis, but also new business and opportunities. Why? Because generally speaking, any business derives from an opportunity, which in turn is determined by a need and by a problem. What do I mean? I mean that any business is based on the idea of solving a problem and is based on the idea of finding a solution that can improve people's lives. So if you base your business, your venture, your entrepreneurial activity on this mindset, usually you can create successful businesses. So your guiding star should always be the identification of a problem and consequently a solution that can solve the problem, that can satisfy a need, that can improve people's lives. So when we have big problems, like we are having in our times, we consequently can have big opportunities determined by the needs triggered by the problem. And so what are the problems and needs determined by the pandemic? First of all, we have a problem related to the pandemic itself that generate needs and opportunities in terms of health and personal well-being. So the threat for the health of all of us determined by the pandemic determines also a strong need and necessity of healthcare, and personal well-being. Secondly, we have another huge problem, which is the social distancing, which determines the need and consequently the opportunity of businesses related to creating occasions of professional interaction and of social connection. So the fact that we have or had to be distant physically determines the fact that we have to find another way, another form of being connected and carry out our activities, our businesses, our lives. And we'll see all the businesses that can be related to this area of need and opportunity. The third big problem determined by the crisis is the economic crisis, which determines a big need and opportunity related to business that have to do with financial support, but not only because companies, organizations do not simply money, but they also need organizational, strategic, and technical support. Because in many cases, like we're going to see, like tourism or transportation of individuals and so on, having some cash is not enough. So in some cases, companies have to completely review their business model, have to make it more digital, have to review their strategies. So for consulting companies, organizations like the one of Professor Mariunas, there are many opportunities in this situation. So let me show you consequently what are the sectors that, thanks or due to the pandemic, now are growing, and the sectors where each of you can have business opportunity or professional development opportunities. So first of all, obviously the healthcare and wellness sector. So all the businesses related to producing, selling pharmaceuticals, supplements, medical devices, the personal protective equipment that we mentioned. Think about the production of masks, of gloves, and things like that. The telemedicine. So telemedicine was an already growing industry, but generally speaking, the pandemic is accelerating and boosting some processes that were already going on. So it's also accelerating the adoption of e-health and telemedicine, smart hospitals, digital medical assistants, and all the apps, mini apps that can help us to check our health and make self-diagnosis in order, once again, to control and take care of our health, even if we cannot physically meet a doctor or a physician. Not simply healthcare, but also wellness. So the pandemic has triggered also the need for taking care of ourselves, of our health, and our physical shape. So many businesses selling equipment for training, for workout are growing a lot. Another sector that in this time of pandemic has grown and is still growing is food, the sale of food. We've been bound to stay at home more, and we are consuming more food than ever. All the statistics of all the countries that have been in lockdown demonstrate and confirm this trend. So the consumption of fresh groceries, meat, also the need of cold storage has increased. Also the consumption of foreign food and beverage, and the purchasing of cooking appliances. So all these sectors are exploding in our times. Another sector that is growing due to the pandemic, so sector that has been in some way impacted in a positive way for for some aspects, but the pandemic is entertainment. I'm talking about some aspect or some way of satisfying the need of entertainment, because the traditional ways related to physical interaction, like sport events or musical concerts or theater shows, in the traditional way, obviously, are being negatively affected by the pandemic. But on the other hand, the entertainment delivered and played on a digital platform, a digital dimension, is growing exponentially. So all the activities related to online gaming, to virtual visits, to landmarks and home entertainment are booming. The revenue of the companies involved in these sectors are really, really booming. So think about all the museums, art galleries that had to be shut and closed due to the pandemic. They decided correctly to develop websites with virtual tours. And so in many cases, they didn't have these virtual platforms that could help them to display their art pieces and keep the contact with the clients. So imagine all the museums, art galleries of the world had to produce new websites, new visual platforms. So incredible money done in that sector. Another sector in which, for some aspects, the pandemic has generated a positive effect and still having a positive effect is education in terms of online training and online education. So all the platforms for virtual delivery of classes, of training have grown a lot. The online training, the sale of ebooks are booming. So once again, this trend was already going on, was already happening, but the pandemic has and is accelerating it a lot. And generally speaking, the online education that in some countries was still seen in a negative way, probably after this period is going to stay and be accepted anywhere in the world. What else? The service industry, especially the contactless services and systems for delivering services without contact are growing. The enhanced delivery services, the remote banking services, so all the sector that we call fintech. So technology applied to finance is growing. Many countries, give a very simple example, cash was the form of monetary transaction that was the most used, but in many countries now also credit cards are growing and all the remote banking activities are growing once again due to the social distancing and to the lockdown. So if you are in this business already, it's a great opportunity if you are considering to do something as an entrepreneur or to grow as a manager in a sector. This is another industry that you can consider. Other sector that has been positively affected by the COVID-19 is the one related to the electrical appliances. Once again, in lockdown, we are more at home, we stay at home, and consequently, we do more things at home, we consume more food, we store more food at home, so we need bigger fridges, we need also washing machines, dishwashers, sterilization machines, sweeping robots to make our homes cleaner. So all these electrical appliances are being sold much more than ever in history. So this is another sector where you can absolutely grow in these times. Now, another effect of the pandemic is being the fact that we are working from home. In many countries, this is something that is still happening. So smart working, all the applications, the devices, the systems and platforms related to smart working are being sold a lot. Generally speaking, also the cloud-based services, but also imagine that after this crisis, many companies will and are already reviewing the way in which they organize their office activities. Many organizations are realizing that activities can go ahead and that we can achieve the same results by working from home. And so they can save a lot of money that usually they have to spend for their spaces, for their offices, for renting or for buying buildings and facilities. And so this will be another sector of professional development that you can consider, also in terms of consulting for companies, organizations that have to optimize their approach to smart working in all its dimensions. So the IT perspective, the spaces perspective, and the organizational perspective. Logistics and shipping. So obviously, due to the pandemic, there has been a stop and block to the transportation of individuals. So like we're going to see, the tourism is one of the industries that has been terribly affected by the pandemic. But on the other hand, also the lockdown and the social distancing has accelerated and boosted the delivery of goods, especially food and transportation in general of goods. So this sector, compared to the transportation of individuals, of passengers, is growing and will keep growing. I would say that together with the healthcare and pharmaceutical sector, the one that is growing the most now due to the COVID-19 virus is the ITC sector, so information telecommunication sector, because obviously due to the social distancing, we had to find better ways to keep our businesses and activity running, and to keep being connected despite the physical distance. And so companies are buying much more services related to cloud computing, to internet. They are buying more hardware and software. So consider what we mentioned about the schools, the universities, the colleges. I mean, students had to study from home. So families, but also schools, institutions had to buy many more computers, tablets, and the software connected in order to support the education on an online basis. E-learning platforms, consequently, video conferencing platforms. We are all using Zoom, Teams, Skype, and other platforms. And consider that only Zoom, in few weeks after the rise of the pandemic, has gained billions and billions of dollars in stock evaluation in the market, because they started to sell much more, exponentially more. Workplace collaboration platforms, and also cybersecurity. So due to the fact that we're using more cloud-based computing, software, that we are transforming our business and activities digitally, we also need to protect them more in terms of cybersecurity. So systems, platforms, methods, consulting activities regarding cybersecurity are growing. Another area that is growing is artificial intelligence. This is another trend that is being accelerated by the pandemic. It was already growing. It's being boosted by the pandemic because many companies, for example, couldn't utilize well enough their employees for customer services activities. So to give you an idea, many customer service tasks and activity are being transformed in artificial intelligence systems. E-commerce, obviously, many retailers finally realize that it's good to have a way to sell your products, your goods and services, not only through physical stores, but also through e-commerce platforms. So generally speaking, the digital transformation of our activities, of our initiatives, of our businesses is vital, and it's something that cannot have a way back to the past. So for some aspects of our lives and our business, the COVID-19 represents a turning point without possibility of going back to the past. Another sector that is being positively affected by the pandemic is the sector regarding to environmental aspects, services, production. So things like the renewable energy or waste disposal are growing even more to the pandemic. And probably we have to recognize the fact that due to the lockdown, we realized that the air in many cities became better. Everything was cleaner. The sounds in our city were more acceptable, not so much noise. So people realized that a better environment is absolutely possible. So also from a psychological perspective, the consumer is even more careful about these environmental aspects. So all these businesses related to making the environment better, or at least making the economic activities more respectful of the natural environment, are destined to grow even more. It's another area where you could work, invest, and grow. Social platforms. Obviously, we mentioned the fact that although we are physically distant, we are social animals. We need to be in touch with other humans. So social media in all their forms have grown a lot in terms of participants, subscriptors, and so on. Dating apps also are growing a lot due to this pandemic, always because, once again, the social distancing represent a source of need to be connected in different ways, and we're talking about platforms based on online technologies. Another very important aspect that I want to mention in terms of the opportunity, business opportunity determined by the pandemic, regards the local manufacturing. This is very important. So we live in the global era. We are all connected, but the pandemic has also shown the fact that if something like this happens, that can stop the transportation, that can stop and in some way block the value chain, the supply chain, many organizations that, for example, got their raw materials or their components from China were absolutely damaged due to the fact that the frontiers and the travels were stopped. So probably we're going to head towards a globalization 2.0, whereby companies, organizations will try to manufacture their components or what they need, generally speaking, more locally on a national basis, at least reducing the outsourcing, especially the outsourcing outside the national boundaries. So I put here the image of a face mask with the Italian flag, because, for example, what happened in Italy is that we didn't have producers of masks. So when the crisis started, we didn't have enough masks. So usually we imported them from Asia, from China, but it wasn't possible anymore. So many companies that, for example, produced clothes and fashion decided to reorganize activity and to produce masks. So this is a little example to show the fact that probably we are going to live a second stage of globalization with more national production and manufacturing. One final aspect that I want to mention again, in order to show you the sectors that are growing in this moment, is the business consulting, because as stated, companies, organizations need support for funding their activities. They need to identify sources of funding, and so in many cases consultants are very helpful in this perspective. Companies need to reorganize their activities, to review their business models, to reshape their strategy, and consultants can absolutely be very helpful and support in this direction. And last but not least, all the companies need to adopt some form of digital transformation, at least having a website and e-commerce platform that enables them to sell and to offer their products and services online. So this is another area which is growing, which is destined to grow even more. So to recap, these are the sectors with the major business opportunities, and that from the crisis are having advantages. So healthcare and wellness, e-commerce, logistics and shipping of goods, ITC sector, food, entertainment from the online perspective, online education, services industry, especially the contactless services, electrical appliances, office cost reduction opportunities, businesses related to the green economy, to the environment, all the social platforms, local manufacturing, and business consulting. Approaching the conclusion, I want also to share some thoughts about the industries that conversely are particularly hit negatively by the recession caused by the pandemic. And these sectors are, above all, the automotive industry, the energy sector, the tourism, passengers transportation, restaurants, non-essential retail like fashion, forms of entertainment like live events and live sports. Now, in my opinion, for sure, there will be a progressive recovery also for these sectors. We cannot predict exactly the timing of this recovery, but it will happen. But at least for some aspects, for a temporary basis, in these sectors, we have to review the business model and for sure making it more digital as much as possible. So many live events, also concerts have been converted into live online events, but also conference, also virtual gatherings, and so on. And so my suggestion is absolutely try to figure out from a business model perspective, revenue generation, cost management, how to deal strategically with these aspects, but also being confident that it's not going to last forever. And I want to conclude this talk by showing you what's happening in the financial markets, in the stock markets. Precisely what I'm showing you here is the graph related to the Nasdaq index, which is one of the most important stock indexes of the world. It's an American one related mostly to companies operating in the technological sectors. Now, what happened here, and Nasdaq is particularly positive, but also the other indexes are having more or less the same shape, at least in the United States, in Europe a little bit less. But what's happening is this. So as you can see, on the 19th of February, 2020, the market had reached the all-time high in history. Then, as the pandemic exploded, we had a collapse of the stock market with a decline, very quick, absolutely very fast. Never like this, the stock market had crashed so quickly and so much. So the decline was about 35%. So from the 19th of February to the 23rd of March, the stock market collapsed by about 35%. But look what happened after that. we are here on the 22nd of July, and the market has not simply gained and recovered the losses, but it has reached the new historic all-time high and is still growing. It's incredible. Now, obviously, the real economy and the financial economy are not always aligned, but it's also true that quite often the financial markets in some way anticipate what is going to happen in the real economy. So at least this is a sign of hope that the economy worldwide can recover soon in all its sectors. So we show that some sectors are growing and that also in a crisis we can find an opportunity. Generally speaking, we can have a sign of positive vision on the futures by looking at this chart. So I want to thank you for your attention. Thanks, Professor Mar Yunus, for your invitation and for giving me the opportunity to share these thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Antonio Ragusa. It was a wonderful presentation. You tried to highlight a little bit of everything. During these COVID-19 periods, I have been attending so many webinars, conferences, and seminars, but it was one of the most comprehensive and summarized version of the whole discussion on this topic, what is going on. And we have so many questions. The first question is from Davinder Kumar. He's asking that there are some logistical complications. What are the limitation of these opportunities, given the fact that supply side of essential raw material have also affected? So what are the implications? Means the raw material was coming, now it is not coming. Usually it comes from that part of the society which has nothing to do with the formal economy. I mean, the terms in which we are discussing.
Yes, it's absolutely true and correct. So the crisis has determined problems both from the demand side and from the supply side of the economy. Because obviously from the demand side, the problems are reducing the income levels, the expenditure power, but also from the supply side, the blockage of communication, transportation, as we were discussing, has stopped the opportunity for companies, organizations to basically procure the components, the raw materials that they need in order to manufacture their final products and assemble the final products. So what is going to probably happen, like I would say, is that we're going to live a second stage of globalization whereby corporates, companies are bound to bring back home the production of some components that were necessary to create their final products, to manufacture the final products. And yeah, the raw material aspect is a little bit complicated because basically some countries do not have the raw materials necessarily to import them from abroad. And this is absolutely something that creates problem to the whole world economy, and it doesn't have an easy solution because when you don't have the raw material, you necessarily have to import them. At least you find a way to change the way in which you produce the final product service, but obviously it's very difficult. So from those things that you can produce on a national basis, like components or things that maybe only due to cost-saving aspects you decided to outsource, probably the tendency, the trend would be to bring back home the production. For raw materials, there's no real solution unless we find a way to create a vaccine that makes us all more safe and keep living normally.
Okay. And another question is from Mr. Waqas Ahmed. He's asking that how you see new competition dynamics, how small businesses will survive in such intensity.
Mm. Good question. So, generally speaking, the competition aspect can be analyzed on two main levels. So there's a level regarding the international aspect, so the competition between countries and between continents. So what's happening in that level of the economy is that, unfortunately, the dynamic between, for example, United States and China is not improving. So the trade war or commercial war between these two giants of the global economy is still going on. There's still a lot of tension, and this doesn't help anyone, in my opinion. So I'm personally more for a cooperative approach in the global economy, whereby we can create synergies and cooperation rather than competition. And once again, in my personal opinion, we can only find solution to these global problems by adopting global approaches, because we cannot solve the problems of the environment, of the health, global health, or the global economy if we approach the problem on a national basis. Having said that, for the microeconomic dimension, so for companies, organizations, what we are seeing is that the competition is becoming, unfortunately, fiercer, and also based on prices, on cutting prices. And this is obviously something very negative, because when you compete purely on prices, the risk is that everybody is destroyed. So my suggestion is to try to distinguish yourself not on the basis of the prices, but on the basis of the quality or some form of competitive advantage that can make you stand out from the competition and differentiate yourself in this way. Because otherwise, risk is that we compete in a downstream that leads everybody to collapse.
Yes. And Professor, finally, there are so many questions related to the mental stress, informal sector, the people's well-being and unemployment. Maybe you can just summarize that, how you see this, because many people have lost their jobs and the prediction is that there will not be many jobs available. And this transition period, we don't know how long it will be, that the people will able to, do their capacity building and come up with new skills.
Okay, thank you. It's a very, very important question. So let me bring also my personal experience from this perspective. So my personal experience is that during the crisis, the financial crisis of 2008, that we all remember, I decided to found a business, a company, which is the Rome Business School. And in a few years, this school has become one of the international leaders. Now, some of our programs are among the top in the world. We have students from 150 countries and so on. So this is to say that even in a period of crisis, of difficulties, where everything seems to be lost, the truth is that if you adopt a positive mindset, whereby you have a clear purpose, what you really like and love to do, if you invest in yourself, in your education, if you work hard, if you trust in yourself and in your dreams, actually there is nothing that can really stop you. No crisis, no naysayers, no people that say it's too difficult, you can do it. There are already many players, many competitors. So my suggestion is to work a little bit on yourself, read and study things related to personal development, because our mind is the most important asset. And this is what we have to protect and to invest in. 80% of your success is based on your mindset, not on the other aspect. So if you work and nurture your mindset, I don't think there are real limits, even in times that are actually difficult.
Yes, I am 100% agree with you that now the people have realized the benefit of this so-called blended learning, which Rome Business School has already been providing from a last decade, I would say. There was a time when I was a student at Rome Business School and I used to tell these things about blended learning and people wouldn't understand. Now
Yeah,
everyone has adopted this blended learning and distance learning, online learning, and definitely the Rome Business School have an advantage in this. And I will also follow your guidelines that this is also a perfect time to invest in yourself. I mean, many things were pending in your lives. You didn't have enough time. Even you wanted to have another degree and you had no other means, but now there are options available. And one of the option is our Rome Business School. So I will also recommend to my students that since the graduation has come and after the graduation they are looking for other opportunities, so they should definitely visit the website and find a suitable course for them. Once again, thank you very much, Professor Antonio Ragusa. It is always a pleasure to chat with you. You have been very kind to me throughout your educational journey, and you are also supervising
my pleasure,
our
Professor.
consultancy also. And thank you very much to all the students and all the participants and on the social medias who are watching us. Thank you very much for your precious time. We will be online once again with the new topic. Until now, until then, goodbye and thank you very much once again.
Bye bye. Thank